So today I'm going to share a tour of my previous yard where we did some various rewilding and edible landscaping projects, and also talk about what rewilding is and why it's important. I should note though that in these videos, the previous owner of our property had already done a lot of major landscaping. So we were building on and adapting what they had done. Whereas at my new house, there is very little landscaping, so we have a blank canvas to work with. Now, rewilding is all about increasing biodiversity, and biodiversity is critically important for a healthy environment. And climate change is already decreasing and damaging biodiversity. And if you want to learn more about that, I will link a fantastic video to watch. But in this video, I want to talk about some things we can each do to help in our own backyards. First though, let's talk about grass. We as a society need to stop our reverence for turf grass lawns. They actually were created by European aristocracy to show off their massive wealth because they didn't need to grow food on their land and could have servants hand trim the grass. So that's why when people were no longer forced to grow food in their yards and lawnmowers were invented, it became a status symbol that the general public could adopt, and we have still been clinging to it. But here's the thing, grass lawns are harmful to our ecosystems. Turf grass not only isn't a good habitat for insects, but mowing grass is terribly polluting. It uses a ridiculous amount of water. In dry climates, lawns can account for 60% of a household's water use. And all the fertilizer used runs off and can damage water systems. And in America, 78 million pounds of pesticides are used on lawns every year. Plus, we know plants and soil can be a good carbon sink. However, a study found that turf grass lawns actually produce more greenhouse gases than they absorb. It is just all around way more damaging than helpful to the environment. So because of this, I made it a priority to replace and overseed our grass with some more sustainable lawn alternatives and do some rewilding. The great thing about rewilding is it can be done in many ways. Whether you want something low maintenance or enjoy gardening work, it can also be adapted to different landscaping styles, from neat and arranged to wild and meadowy, and also works for different sizes of spaces. The basic principle is just focusing on native plants and returning your outdoor space to closer to how it might have been before humans built on it. So we already had an amazing space to work with, and the previous owners had planted some lovely things like this prolific cherry tree, which attracts a lot of bees in spring, but we focused on adding more edible and native plants as well. The benefits of native plants are that it, of course, helps with biodiversity, it also creates natural habitats, and also means that the plants are designed to grow where you live, so they require less care and water and are hardier. And they also tend to be more resistant to diseases and pests. It's also a good idea to plant lots of flowers and pollinator-friendly plants. It's of course both good for the bees and also very good for your garden to attract pollinators if you have a vegetable garden. So we added raised beds to the yard for veggies and also used the space over here for an additional vegetable garden. So now with rewilding, you can also take a very hands-off approach, often called ungardening, which basically involves just letting things grow and seeing what happens. And while this definitely can help improve biodiversity, it is important to still keep invasive species in check. So for example, we have a noxious weed called creeping bellflower. It's awful, it spreads like crazy, so would completely take over the yard if we left it alone. So now let's chat specifically about lawn alternatives and what to do if you like to have some grass space. Maybe you use it or your kids play on it. You can have both your lawn and better biodiversity too. We had grass in our front lawn and also a small area in the back of our house, and wanted to keep it for my daughter to play outside. And there are many different lawn alternatives depending on your needs. We decided to go with something called bee turf. It's a blend of a bunch of different small flowers, clovers, and grasses. It's very lush and green, and what I liked about it is you can keep it trimmed short if you want a more conventional lawn look, or you can let it grow a little higher and you get lovely little flowers. It's prettier, really nice to walk on and play on, and it requires less water and mowing and no fertilizers compared to grass. This spring we'll be seeding bee turf again at our new house, and while you can rip up your sod to do it properly, one of the West Coast Seeds bee turf developers told me you can also just power rake your lawn to break the grass thatch and spread on a mix of the seeds, soil, and compost. You will get a bit of grass growing through, but it's way less work and you still get a lovely, more sustainable lawn. There are also many other lawn alternatives available, and I'll include a link where you can learn more about them and figure out what might be best for you and where you live. Another very important element of your rewilding involves letting your garden go through natural cycles. So when fall comes, don't rake up those leaves. It's not only ridiculous to be sending leaves to a landfill, but they provide important habitats for insects and as mulch for plants. If you have a ton of leaves or want to keep an area of your yard clear, then just move them and use them as mulch. And some other things you can do in your yard are install nest and bug boxes and bird houses to make more homes for wildlife. And it's a good idea to have some source of water. This could be a small dish or a water feature, or if you have the space, building a pond can create a space for amphibians and aquatic plants to live, as well as being a source of water for animals and insects. We were incredibly fortunate that the previous owners had built not just one, but 2 gorgeous ponds and waterfall features at our house. And while it is a big project and we likely wouldn't have done it ourselves, it really transformed the yard into a nature oasis, and we loved having it and definitely noticed all of the critters who lived in and used the pond as well. It's also a great idea to have a compost. It's not only another habitat for bugs and microorganisms, but allows you to naturally fertilize your plants and reduce your waste. So that was my yard and some of the ways we did some rewilding, and I loved it. I'm very much gonna miss it this spring and summer, but I'm also excited for a new yard and a new project. I hope that this video gave you some ideas or inspiration on ways you might be able to improve biodiversity in your outdoor space, and I'd love to hear about them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.